Today on Answers for Living, we want to explore four things that help us get unstuck from bad situations. No matter how you got stuck, remember, number one is this: no mess is too big for a miracle. That's why Jesus came. No matter how far away we are, he came to do a miracle in our life. Luke 5 says this: I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. So he came to call sinners to repentance, no matter how far away we are. Second of all, he came and conquered death. So there's nothing in that his power can't handle. In Ephesians chapter 1, verse 18 to 20, it says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. That power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead and seated him at his right hand in heavenly places. The power that works in you and for you is the same power that raised Christ from the grave. So no mess is too big, because there's no limit to God's power. Number two, God doesn't always respond when we cry for help. Did you hear that? God does not always respond when we cry for help. Just because we cry out for help doesn't mean he's going to answer. He never promised us that he would answer every cry for help. He isn't sitting on some hill pining away over our journey to a distant country. He is incomplete without us. He needs nothing. So write this down if you're taking notes. If you want a life without God, he will let you have a life without God. He'll let you go to that distant country far, far away from God. If you want to, okay. Psalm 81, verse 11 and 12 says this: But my people would not listen to me. Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their own devices. Romans chapter 1, 21 to 28, he's talking about people who don't want to do life with God. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God and didn't give him thanks, but their thinking became futile and foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like the mortal human being or birds or animals or reptiles. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their heart to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and they worshiped and served the created things rather than the Creator, who is forever to be praised. Because they didn't want a life with God, the true God, God allowed them to proceed down a spiral of living life without God. Now, if we refuse to listen, he's going to refuse to help. Proverbs chapter 1, But since you refuse to listen when I call, and no one pays attention when I stretch out my hand, since you disregard all my advice, do not accept my rebuke, I in turn will laugh when disaster strikes you, when distress and trouble overwhelm you. Then they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will look for me, and I will not be found. Listen carefully. Remorse and crying for God's help does not get God to answer.